It's Friday, so that means it's another edition of Fan Take Friday where Pat and I react to your takes and your questions, including some things about a new trade target, potential new All-Star games, Evgeni Malkin, playoff talk, and so much more. That's coming up right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Dave. You can follow him on all social media platforms at Syndrome for Wet. You can follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins, and you can find us on Instagram at LockedOn_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen/watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. We got a ton of submissions today, whether it's takes or questions from you guys, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, DMs, you name it. We got a ton today. We're probably not going to be able to get to everyone. So if we don't, we apologize. Send us some more submissions the next week. Following week after that, we promise we'll get you guys in at some point, but we're going to try to get to as many as we can today. And Pat, I did want to start out with a pretty cool one here. This comes from Pens68 on YouTube. He says, I saw yesterday that Yegor Chinakhov has requested a trade out of Columbus. I immediately thought of the Penguins being in on him. And Kelsey, of course, my coworker, had a really good article about this as well. Do you guys think Kyle Dubas should contact Don Waddell about Chinakhov? They definitely have the assets. Yes, this is someone who definitely fits the timeline. This is someone who has already requested a trade out of Columbus. Now, the trade for the Blue Jackets does have to make sense. They're going to want to try to get as much value as they can if they do want to move Chinakhov. This past season, 17 goals, 15 points in 30 games. Last season was his best season so far in the league. 16 goals, 29 points in 53 games. He is a former first-round pick in the 2020 NHL draft, only 24 years of age. Again, this is someone who I think, even though there's a surplus of forwards right now, this is someone who I think can go into the lineup and play on an every night basis. They've talked a lot about getting younger, going after some teams where some players maybe aren't happy. This is a prime example of that. I 1,000,000% think Kyle Dubas should at least look into this to see what it would take.
He definitely should. It like you said, everything that they said they want to do with young players in this portion of the rebuild, he checks all those boxes. The couple of issues I would have with it are, one, he is injury prone. Now, I have said on the show plenty of times that calling someone injury prone is silly because it's just luck. It's the fastest sport on earth. And sometimes one move one way, you get away with it. Sometimes one move the other and you're hurt. So you can't really blame a player for injuries most of the time. The other thing that worries me about this is twofold. One, it's an in-division trade. And while the Penguins and Columbus are on different tracks right now, Columbus is kind of on their way up. The Penguins are going to start building their way back from the bottom over the next few years. I do see a world where you could have a potential first-round clash with this team. And they're going to ask about Brian Rust. They're going to ask about Rickard Rakell. And while those two might be at the end of their peaks once we get to that point, I would hesitate sending them to Columbus. The other thing that I'm a little hesitant about overall, and this isn't just for the Penguins, it's for the other 31 teams that could potentially inquire about him, is if you look at the way his agent and even the organization itself have talked about Chinakhov and his situation, they didn't come out and say, screw Columbus, we're done here, it's over, it's never going to happen. They basically said, listen, we would like to explore a trade. Chinakhov and Dean Evason aren't seeing eye to eye, but if they can't find a deal, he is going to show up. He is going to work hard. He's going to be a professional. He's going to make it work if they can't find a partner. So this isn't a fait accompli. This isn't, this guy's done. He's out. They're getting rid of him. And Evason even said, or not Evason, Waddell basically said as much, that, yeah, I'm talking to teams about this. I'm going to try to honor it, but if I don't get fair value for him, I'm not moving him. So, and for Columbus, you don't want to become Buffalo. You don't want to become the team that every young player who shows up, you immediately honor their trade request if they want to get out. You sell them for pennies on the dollar. And Waddell's not the kind of GM that is going to capitulate to every player. He's eventually, in some junctures, he's going to go, yeah, that's nice that you want to trade. It's too bad, though, because you're staying here or you're not playing. So I'm curious to see what happens, but he definitely should be somebody that Dubas should inquire about.
Yeah, I think the Penguins, like with the amount of draft capital they have over the next 3 years, they have the assets, even though the prospect pool, again, they don't have the franchise superstar yet. And obviously, even if they did, they wouldn't trade that player for Chinakhov, of course. But I think I think they still have enough in the system right now where they could pull off a trade. It's just whether, Don Waddell wants to do it, and B, especially, does he want to trade Chinakhov to a division rival? Because Columbus, the Penguins are basically their biggest rival. When you look at the other teams in the Metropolitan Division, you look at the distance away from the city, it's Pittsburgh. To them, they're number one. For the Penguins, the Blue Jackets, they're one of the top rivals, but I still wouldn't put them, above the Rangers, even the Flyers, the Capitals. I think I would even put the Islanders above them right now, in my opinion. But it's still a pretty fun rivalry. Not what it was in 2017, but it's still one of their top rivals. But moving on to another one here. This one was really cool from PensFan0082. Do you guys have a player you hope to see a jump this year? I think Philip Tomasino is going to take a leap. I see him getting at least 15 to 20 goals this upcoming season. That is good. And the player I'm going to say, it feels like it's maybe a little unfair because we only got a couple of games from him last season before he got hurt. But I think a lot of fans are going to get to see how good Tommy Novak is this year. Someone who can score at will, someone who is also a really good playmaker. He's good in all three zones. Again, we only saw a couple games out of him, but before that in Nashville, I thought he was having a pretty fine season. The year before that, he was good for the Predators as well. If they put him with Evgeni Malkin, that makes a ton of sense to me. So I'm going to go with Tommy Novak. I know he's a bit of a veteran, but that's someone who I could really see having a bigger year than some fans expect.
I'm interested to see what happens with Owen Pickering, because we talked about him months ago with Jesse Marshall, and basically Jesse's theory of the case was it's hard to put a mixtape together for him because he just does the little things well and nothing really jumps off the screen at you. He's just in good position. He makes the right decisions. He does a lot of the fundamental things very well. I want to see how much of that he can continue, especially if and when he gets a shot at the NHL level, because I'm on record as saying I look at Owen Pickering as a young Brian Dumoulin. I think this is a defenseman who has top four potential, and not because he's going to light up the score sheet, but because if and when, hopefully, the Penguins get that dynamic number one or number two defenseman who can jump into the play, who can provide offense, Owen Pickering will be the guy right next to him who says, I'm going to let you go run. I got everything back here on lockdown. Go do your thing. It's not going to be a very, like Jesse said, not a very exciting player to watch game to game, but he will fit into the Pat Damp category of a guy who game by game, you're not blown away by him, but then you get to game 82 and you go, man, that guy had a really, really solid year. So very interested to see what Pickering does when he gets his opportunity.
He got a good taste of NHL action last year. I thought he did not look out of place at all. I know some people were, weirded out when he got sent down for the rest of the season, but he is going to have every opportunity and then some to make this team out of camp. And right now, if I had to make a prediction, I do think he's going to make this team out of camp. You look at the other options on the left side, they're still not very good. Obviously, again, Ryan Graves is out there, and as of right now, there's a chance that he could be playing top 4 minutes, which no thanks. Honestly, and Parker Weatherspoon is at least an upgrade on the bottom pairing. You have Ryan Shea still there, of course, but Owen Pickering, in my opinion, when you look at all of the available options for the left side, he should be able to carve out a role for himself during camp and preseason and make this team. Again, I really like the sample size that I saw this past season. And again, he'll have every opportunity to make this team out of camp once it starts in September going into October. But I think that'll do it for this first segment. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to continue to react to your takes and your questions for Fan Take Friday. That's coming up right after this. Before we get to that, though, we have to tell you all about our first sponsor, and that is Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you have been dying to see. So many of my friends were telling me about Paul McCartney stories this week when tickets went on sale. They lost their spot in line, only to get back in a few minutes later, and they finally got tickets, but still, it was a pretty big and drawn out process. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping, and that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endlessly scrolling, trying to find the best deal? Game Time's Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Ever wonder what your view will actually look like before you buy? The app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises when you get to your seat. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-hosts, Patrick Damp and Pat. This is a really fun one that we got from G Tots. He says, for something different, if the four nations in the Olympics are even year events, what would you want for the odd year All-Star break events? Personally, would like to see Divisional Young Guns All-Star with Veteran Skills Challenge show. It looks like G Tots, we're going to get the World Cup of Hockey in the Olympics. It's not just going to be the four nations. It'll be the World Cup of Hockey in the Olympics for even years, and then they'll have to figure out some sort of all-star festivity. I do agree that I think the time is past now for actual all-star games. I don't think even the casual fans like them at this rate. You saw how successful the Four Nations ones was this year. You saw the views that it got. You saw so many more casual sports fans even tuning into it. So I just don't think it's in the NHL's best interest to continue trying to do all-star games. Next year, they're doing a all-star send-off event. No idea what that entails. They're probably still planning it right now. But even after that, I think you can go forward with a quote-unquote skills competition. At least fans will tune into that. But Pat, you had something else that you wanted to throw out at me and the fans before we start recording, so I'll give the floor to you.
So the two best events when it comes to All-Stars is the NBA dunk contest and the MLB home run derby.
Yeah.
And the thing about those two events is, at least for the most part, you don't have to be an all-star to be part of it. You can just be a guy who mashes dingers and you get to go into the home run derby. You're not playing in the all-star game, but they're going to serve you up meatballs across the plate and watch you hit it 450 feet, or if you're O'Neal Cruz, 500, because that's what people want to see. I would like to see the NHL do that with the skills competition. There is some fourth liner in the NHL that doesn't get a lot of play, doesn't get a lot of press, but can skate like the wind. Put him in fastest skater. Yeah, he's not going to be in the 3-on-3 or whatever convoluted type of game you make up for the next day, but put him in that competition. Continue to showcase the PWHL players, because the year before, a couple years before, they had Kendall Coyne-Schofield in fastest skater, and she was among the 3 fastest skaters. So keep highlighting them in that skills competition. I guarantee you that there is probably some up and down AHL, NHL guy who's got unbelievable hands, unbelievable skill, but hasn't been able to put it all together as a full-time NHL player. Put him in the obstacle course skills comp. Let him cook. Have fun with that, because that is the stuff nowadays that people will tune into and watch. So you might as well get the most out of it. Don't leave it limited to, okay, we're going to have the same 5 guys in the hardest shot. We're going to have the same 5 guys in fastest skater. Have fun with it. And it'll honestly make it more of a spectacle. And how exciting do you think it'll be for the players when, whether it's a PWHL player or somebody who doesn't get the shine that their colleagues think they deserve, gets to shine on a skills competition stage? So I want to see that expanded and see it be more of a spectacle, because that's what people will tune in for. You're never going to recreate the magic, even moving forward, that you had of 4 Nations this past year, because that was just such a flash in the pan great moment. Now you're going to be chasing that. And instead of trying to chase your own tail, do new innovative things that'll make it more worth tuning into.
That's the thing, though. Can the NHL actually do that, considering that the league is still kind of run by dinosaurs? Or are we just going to kind of get the same old stuff again? I think the time is well past when it comes to All-Star games. I think as a whole, when it comes to a lot of the professional sports leagues, a lot of All-Star games are just jokes now at this rate. I used to have a lot of fun watching them as a kid, but lately, outside of, the dunk contest, home run derby, I'm just not really going to tune in to.
And you know what else?
The NFL's turned the Pro Bowl into a joke too, even though it was a joke for a while, but it's even more of a joke now.
And you know what else? I know the NHL is not going to do it, because you hit the nail on the head. They're run by dinosaurs, and anytime they do something good and positive, they find a way to crush it. Bring back the fantasy draft. That was the most fun that I think I've ever seen NHL players have at an all-star event. The top, even if it's not your top players, whoever your top 2 vote getters for the fan vote, one is team captain, the other's the other team captain, and have them do a draft. And oh no, we might hurt somebody's feelings for being last. Bill Kessel didn't care that he was picked last. He laughed about it. He had fun with it. Do it again. Let these guys be goofballs. Let them have fun. Let them make their viral moments and make it entertaining for the fans.
That works for me. But again, we just have to see if the NHL actually wants to do that. By the way, for the World Cup of Hockey, not the Penguins, but Pittsburgh has submitted a bid to host some of the games. If they succeed and they do get to host some of those games, Pat, you definitely know I'm going to go down there and watch some of those games at PBG Paints Arena. That's going to be a lot of fun once the World Cup of Hockey comes back after the Olympics. Now, this one from Michael on YouTube, this is also fun. Most likely to least. Jari is an all-star, Graves is a top pairing defenseman, or Pens make the playoffs. So I've been kind of going back and forth on some of these. This may sound a bit nuts, even though I don't think the team is still going to be very good this year. But I'd probably say Pens playoffs number 1, just because I don't think Jari is ever going to regain his all-star form. Could happen, but I just don't see it. Ryan Graves being a top pairing defenseman, I think that ship has sailed, a long time ago. That ship is way out to sea right now. I'd probably go Pens playoffs 1, Jari all-star 2, Graves 3, but I don't feel good about any of these. So it's just kind of like a crap sandwich almost. I don't know. I don't feel good about any of these though, but it's still a fun one to discuss.
That's my ranking too. Listen, it's a meme, but it's true. For as good as the Metro has been for the majority of its existence, everything comes back to earth, and it very much is the Midropolitan division at this point.
Thanks.
So couple lucky breaks here and there, a hot 2 weeks by the Penguins. I think it's highly unlikely, but of the 3 scenarios we're given, I'd say of those 3, it's the most likely. Number 2, Jari's an all-star. He's done it before, and I maintain that I still think there's a solid NHL goaltender in there. It's just not going to happen in Pittsburgh. I think he is a classic change of scenery guy. Put him on a new team with a better defense, he could thrive. Ryan Graves, top pair. I mean, you could maybe put that at number 1 by opportunity, depending on what they do with the roster. Maybe he's just a warm body who gets put onto the top pair, but being an actual top pairing defenseman, never happening.
Ryan Graves is the top pair defenseman as a tank commander. That's the only way I could see that, but he's not going to play like a top pairing defenseman, even if he gets some of those minutes this year with Chris Letang. If Erik Karlsson is still there, whoever is on the right side, we'll just have to see who gets those minutes. If Karlsson is traded, it's going to be Letang that takes those minutes, even though I don't think he is fit for those minutes anymore. But if Karlsson is still here, I could also see him taking those minutes as well. One more though, Pat, before we do go to break and get to some other ones, especially from Instagram. Landon Bartels, he says, this is more of a question for you guys. I'm from Alaska. I'm taking my dad on a father-son trip this year to Pittsburgh in early November for a game against the Washington Capitals. I've been to multiple Penguins games over the years, but this will be my first time ever going to a game in Pittsburgh. I was wondering more about Pittsburgh than anything, but what are some good places in the Pittsburgh area to get food or drinks before the game? Pat, we discussed this, I think, a couple of months ago when someone else asked this question. I will say again, Super Bowl is right by the arena. If you want good drinks, I would suggest you go there. Pat, we also discussed Market Square a little bit. It's decent walking distance. I don't think it's like insanely close, but you can still walk there. But those are two, at least for me, that I would recommend. Pat, I think you had some other recommendations as well during the time. I just forget.
Yeah, Super Bowl is a great pregame spot. It's going to be packed shoulder to shoulder because it's one of the most popular places that people go before games, but it'll be all Penguins fans. It's a fun atmosphere. And it's an easy walk over to the arena once you get close to game time. Hunter said Market Square. You got Primanti's there. There's a couple other options. It's a really fun little spot in the city. Depending on how long you're in town, you got to go to Mount Washington to get a view of the city. It's absolutely beautiful. And depending on time of year, if it's like fall or spring or late to early spring, you got to check out the Strip District in Penn Avenue because it is the most Pittsburgh to ever Pittsburgh, whether it's all the knockoff merchandise, t-shirts, hats, all that stuff that is so uniquely Pittsburgh. There's also a ton of really good restaurants down there for you to check out. So that's a quick and dirty one, but it's a really fun, underrated town for you to check out once you get here. And obviously, this is the last thing I'll say about it. If you haven't been to a game in Pittsburgh, obviously it's a little bit different now because the team's rebuilding, but I would also recommend getting there early to check out warm-ups so you can both be there early, get your seat view, check out the arena as a whole, and then just kind of see what the full game day experience is like when you go to PPG Paints Arena.
Those are all very good. I'll also recommend Point State Park depending on the time of year that you go. Hopefully it's not too cold around that time. And if it's not, I would definitely go down there. It's usually cool by the water. You can just hang out there, take pictures of the stadiums, take pictures of downtown, all that good stuff. And then even for the Strip, Coupe de Ville, Pat, you know it. I know it. That's a fun bar to go to. So if you are into that type of scene, I would also recommend that place as well. But that would do it for the second segment. Coming up to end the show, we're going to finish off this edition of Fan Take Friday with some other pretty cool submissions that's coming up right after this. All right, we're back here in this edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Name. And Pat, we got a good one here from Instagram, and this person says, Malkin has one of the best contracts in the league in terms of second-line centers. He had a 60-plus point pace last year with the worst pair of second-line wingers in the league, yet he continues to get disrespected by fans and media people. There was a weird tweet that I saw this morning. Someone was trying to say, like, who was better in their prime, Evgeni Malkin or Joe Pavelski? And I'm like, Bate used to be believable, man. Evgeni Malkin is a top 20, top 25 player of all time, 3-time Stanley Cup champion. Look at the points that he's put up. You look at the playoff performances that he has put up for the Penguins. You look at his all-around game, especially when he was in his prime. It's not even close. I don't even know why someone decided to make that tweet. I agree. He's been disrespected by a lot of people throughout his career. Pat and I have very much defended him on this show from some very odd criticism from people. He is going to go down as a top 20 to top 25 player of all time, and he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer whenever he decides to retire. We'll have to see if this is his final year. We've discussed that a lot on the show. But yeah, there's some weird takes out there about Malkin. Then I'm just like, let's chill out here a little bit.
The Pavelski one, what are we going for on that? He's got almost 300 more points than Pavelski in almost 100 less games. So like, there's no debate there. Right. But to the original question and take, it's true to an extent, and we've talked about it on the show. He really had some inconsistent line mates this past season and still did fairly well, 50 points this past year, which is solid. But there is no denying that he has slowed down. He's not what he was even 4 or 5 years ago, but there is still a good second line player in there, especially if Dan Muse and Kyle Dubas can find him good, consistent line mates this year, which I think they'll be able to, given who they've brought in and who could come up as a prospect that could really help him. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's the story of Evgeni Malkin's career. He's always been a forgotten second fiddle guy, half because he played with one of the greatest players of all time in Sidney Crosby, and half because even with the greatness of Alex Ovechkin, there is still, to this day, almost an anti-Russian bias in North America when it comes to NHL players. It, how many times did we see these stories about the enigmatic Evgeni Malkin? The guy is one of the fiercest competitors to ever wear a Penguins jersey. He cares more than he I don't even, you can't even say cares more than he lets on. We know how much this guy cares. We know how passionate this guy is, how hard he's worked, and how good he's been. So that's the Pavelski thing makes no sense. And yeah, I agree that there's been a little bit of disrespect, but let's also be honest here. He has slowed down a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think everyone knows that. Like, I think most people realize he's not the same player that he once was in, 2016, 2017, but he's also not this washed up scrub that I keep seeing people kind of hint at, in Penguins Twitter, even, Penguins Reddit sometimes. And Penguins Reddit is a funny place to go to. I like going on there, looking at some people's takes. That's a fun time, but still a couple more to go here before we wrap up. Mike on Instagram asks, he doesn't ask, but he tells us Dubas will get us another first rounder in the 2026 NHL draft. I agree with that. I think in some way, shape, or form, he is going to get the Penguins another first round pick, because it's going to be, I think, for one of Carlson, Rust, or Raquel. I don't think all of those players will be on the team to start the 25-26 season, but I don't think all of them are going to go during the offseason. Philip, though, asked, will Fleury officially retire a Penguin? I guess he's talking about a one-day contract. At this point, Pat, he may not, like, at least with where we're at right now, in terms of, the jersey going into the rafters. I've made my take on that perfectly clear. I lean towards no. But in terms of him officially retiring a Penguin, I don't know if we're going to get that at this juncture. I think he's just cool with walking off into the sunset on his own terms.
I also think that's an overrated thing that fans talk about a lot is he going to retire as X team player? Listen, everybody associates Marc-Andre Fleury with the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's more than enough for me. That should be more than enough for you. I break with you on the retirement thing. I think 29 is going to be in the rafters with 87, 71, and 58. If for no other reason, they have the most Stanley Cups in Penguins history outside of Mario Lemieux, who has 5, and his name is in the rafters. So it's just, they were together for an unprecedented run of success as a core, and they were the drivers of the bus. So I don't think it really matters that he retires as a Penguin. Everybody knows that Marc-Andre Fleury's best days, save for 1 or 2 of them, were with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
1,000,000%. And finally, this one to wrap up Fan Take Friday. This comes from Waba38 on YouTube. He says, this is assuming Carlson is traded, but Harrison Brunick is going to wow everyone at camp for a second year in a row, prompting Dubas to flip Connor Clifton for a pick before the season, similarly to when the Penguins traded Goodbranson to Anaheim because John Marino made a statement at camp. Honestly, I don't think that's too far out there, even though they just acquired Connor Clifton last month. We all saw what Brunick did in camp last year. We saw what he did in preseason. He came so close to making it. If we do see that again, I mean, we really very well could see Dubas being like, hey, can we maybe get something small for Connor Clifton, even though they just acquired him? But again, he's only going to be here for at most this season. But if they think Brunick is ready for the main show, they will make room for him no matter what. So I don't think that take is too far out there.
I don't either. I also, from what I can gather, it doesn't sound like they're going to block him.
No.
Like, so if he shows up and has a really good camp again and looks like he can hang at this level, At the very least, I think they'll give him the 9-game tryout to see where he's at. But I also want to make sure that we expectations set a little bit here. The kid's got all the potential in the world. He's got the talent, but we don't want to start penciling him in as a number 1 or number 2 or even number 3 defenseman yet, because there is still a long way to go in his development. We've talked about it with him before. He is on a notoriously bad junior team, and it came up to bite him a little bit when he had his little cup of coffee with the baby Penguins. He had some of those bad habits of, I was the best player on this team. I'm going to try to do some of the things I did in junior. And to his credit, quickly learned, oh, I can't do that at this level. So he's still got a little bit of a ways to go in development. It doesn't seem like they're going to block him. He's going to get his chance, but I don't want people to get hyped up and then disappointed if he gets sent back to junior.
That's fair. Also, I will say, and we know a couple other people have also pointed this out, he can get traded in junior, especially if his team is going to be really bad this year, which we both expect. If that's the case, he can maybe get traded to a different team that's trying to contend, make the playoffs, and then I think that will be a better fit for him. We'll just have to see if that happens. But I will say with Brunick, yes, he did have some welcome to the AHL moments at the end of last season, but in the playoffs, Pat, very small sample, he was very good for Wilkes-Barre. I think he was one of their best players, even though their run did not last very long. But I think that would do it for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch this one. Pat and I will be back with another show for you guys on Monday to discuss all things Penguins. So for Patrick Damp, I am Hunter Hodes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. We'll be back on Monday.